Fight.
Hi, my name is Nicole Nagelli, and today I have Kylie Gay with me.
Hi.
Do you want to say a little
Nice
bit
to
about
meet you.
yourself?
Well, I'm Kylie Gay. I'm currently a storyboard revisionist over at Disney TV Animation Studios. I'm currently also in Florida, so that's super exciting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know it's super awesome to be able to be so remote, but also feel so close to all the different crewmates. So that's been really exciting. This is my first industry job. I did a small bit of freelance right beforehand for Gaumont on Samurai Rabbit, Usagi Yojimbo Chronicles, but this is my first like full-time reporting and having like colleagues and crewmates and all these different bosses. So very exciting.
Wow, that must be so much fun. All right, here is the icebreaker question. Tell us your favorite quote, but in your own words.
Ooh, favorite quote. What's funny, I have quotes right above my computer on post-it notes.
Oh, okay, so you got a little cheat sheet.
I do. I have a lot. A lot of mine have to do with just like trying to be yourself and trying to push past a lot of perfectionism. I feel like the one that hits me the most is don't get it right, get it written.
Ooh,
Just
yeah,
like,
that's a good one.
yeah, right. I got it from Film Courage. They have like a series on their YouTube channel, and it's like a whole series of just like starting it, finishing it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be done. You know, I'm like, yes, okay, I can finish something. Even if it's not perfect, it can be good enough just because you've done it and you finished it. So
Yeah, that's really good advice. That's what they say for like first drafts, right? Like it just needs to exist, that sort of
right.
stuff. Mm-hmm.
Because you can always revise it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but can't always have it done first.
What role has fear played in your mindset towards art?
That same thing. The fear of like that I often can't start something because I feel like it's not going to be as good as I want it to be. You know, like I was talking to one of my friends earlier about this, but having like high expectations on yourself. So picture in my mind, like, okay, I want it to be just like this. And then that fear comes in of just like, it's not going to look the way I want it to. So I can't really start it. Or oftentimes I would push myself through it and then I'll finish it and feel proud about it. And then afterwards, the fear is like actually, you know, giving it to recruiter, putting it online or showing it to people because I'm like, it's still not, it's still not. So a lot of my fear has to be like getting started and then showing people even after it's done. So that's something I've been battling with forever, and I'll probably still battle with it in the future. But we're getting better. That's the key progress.
Yeah, I love that because I was just talking to like I've been able to meet some like really incredible people by doing these interviews and like people no matter how successful or like big they make it stays. It always stays. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think healthy fear is a good thing too because it's like do I want to put this story out because it has like XYZ person in it? Yeah.
Right. That's true.
How does fear
Super true.
affect the work you do and how do you combat it?
Ooh, I think combating it. I know what's crazy is that for my job, I'll get started on something right away and then I'll just be like, okay. Like, especially when I first started, I was like, okay, it has to be perfect. I have to just, or they will fire me. They'll never let me back in. Like, so I know it could be really effective, especially in the beginning, because I was like, I just want to do a good job. I didn't want to mess up the opportunity. But now it's like having validation from, which maybe is, I feel like it's healthy. It could be unhealthy if you rely on the validation, but having validation from your bosses, from your colleagues, or even if you're not working, like from whatever your support group is, of being like, oh, you are doing a good job. Like, this is good. You don't have to, you know, kill yourself to make it perfect. It doesn't have to be the certain way for it to be good and for you to be a good artist. So I usually combat it either by just remembering, like, okay, these people told me that this was good enough. I don't have to beat myself over it. I don't have to tell myself I don't deserve it because, you know, obviously outside of my own mind, people recognize these things about me that I don't see about myself. And then when I'm working, I'll look up and I get all these quotes I have on my wall to be like, okay, it'll be fine, you know. Make an effort to praise what you've done. You know, this effort's good enough. This version's good enough. Like, impossible to eradicate all mistakes. I'll just keep reminding myself of that. Or, like I said, I've got a lot of podcasts and interviews. That's how I found yours. Of just like listening to different. It's great. They're so good. Of listening to different people talk about their own experiences with fear and their own experiences with insecurity and perfectionism and things like that. And I'll just try and be like, okay. So I kind of go off of their energy, like calming energy, and try and get back into it. But a lot of the times I just have to sit down and be like, all right, I'm kind of shaking myself. You gotta draw.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
cannot draw. You have to do this. So that's I think, I don't know, I just have to force myself to. It's good to give yourself a mental break if you feel like it's overwhelming you. But to a certain extent, if you don't, or at least for me, if I don't get started, I will get more anxious and more pressure on myself. So it's like this balance of give yourself that mental time to kind of gather yourself, but also if you don't, you're gonna be more stressed out later.
How
So
do you
it's like,
tell whether it's one or the other? Like, do you need a break, or are you
mm,
actually like, ah, at the computer?
oh, that's really good, because that's usually when I start asking myself questions, right?
Mhm.
Like if I'm working, because I always work late at night for whatever reason. If I'm working, I'm like starting to feel tired, and like the drawings are just like, I don't even want to draw it. Then I usually go like, okay, this isn't that I don't want to draw. It's just that even if it is in the daytime, it's like I might just be tired. I might need to get a break and walk around and do something else.
So is it
But
more like a
usually,
physical thing for you? Or
yeah,
is there like a way to, I guess mental would be like the art block, I guess.
yeah. Sometimes I feel like when it's art block, things like that, I'll try to go on a walk and just like sort of come back or listen to music or like some interview that really gets you motivated, or watch like an episode of something that you really like that kind of gets you hyped. If it's mental specifically, if I notice that those things don't rejuvenate me, or if I just keep going like, well, I think it's like if I'm noticing I keep wanting to do something else first, like, well, let me I can clean my room, I can make lunch, I got
Yeah.
laundry to do, or even just recognizing if I'm just binging something and I'm just vegging
Mhm.
out and I'm constantly like, I need to get started, I need to do this thing. And every time I think about doing the thing, if I get anxious about it, it's like, okay, so, you know, this is possibly just me trying to procrastinate to run away from this feeling of anxiety versus just me needing to kind of sit down and chill and take a break or take a day off or week off, however much time you
Yeah.
happen to need. I don't know. I think that's definitely, it's probably like a per person thing, but I think when I notice I'm like very overwhelmed, that's when I start to ask myself questions of, are you scared of this thing, or are you just like having a mental breakdown? Like I gotta take a break. So I try to just sort of feel out what is it behind the feeling.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really good strategy. That's what I do. Like
Mm-hmm.
yesterday, I really didn't want to. I have to practice some math because of
Ooh.
college, and I didn't pre-calculus is like, but so I'm also trying to learn like how to skateboard. It's been like a week, so instead of I really didn't want to like go outside. Thank you. I really didn't want to go outside, but then I was like, I have math to do though. So do you want to skateboard or do you want to do math? And I was like, I'm gonna skateboard. I'm gonna
Right.
skateboard. And then later I
Of
just
course.
did the math. I think for
Hmm.
my thing, I made a video on
Hmm.
this too. I think
Ooh,
productive procrastination just works for me because I'm like running from
it
fear
can.
into something else, but just like
Hmm.
cycling over and over and over. That's lovely.
Yes. Yes, that's exactly what I call it too. I'm like, it's productive,
Yeah.
right? Because you're getting things done. Like
Yeah.
it's some things that you needed to get done that you were procrastinating. So it's helpful, you
I
know.
think we spend most of our lives distracted by something anyway, right? Like you're never
Yeah.
kind of like intentionally doing stuff.
Hmm.
I'm curious.
Hmm.
So, when you encounter a problem, let's say like you're just for some reason, like today you're just not drawing as well, or like you don't understand like how to
Mm,
storyboard this one scene and like you've thought about it a
yeah.
lot. What is your first thought usually when you're like, "Ugh, this isn't working out?"
Honestly, my first thought is like, why am I doing this? I'm a terrible artist. Why did I decide to be a storyboard artist? I'm a fool. I don't know what I'm doing. So, unfortunately, my first thought is to immediately roast myself and be
Oh,
like, I always knew you couldn't do this. Like I just sort of, and for a minute, I'll let myself go there and then be like, okay, so let's assess if I don't know how to do this, or if it's right, if it's something like a bad drawing day, I feel like that's a little harder because it's like a there's like an energy you almost have to tap into for art. It's not just like your motor skill, like maybe you need a stretch, maybe your hand needs a break, or you need to do some things, but like the energy is not there. It's a little harder for that, especially if I have to draw. Like if there's a deadline for something, I'm like, I can't draw what I need to draw. I'll try to purposely tell myself to make bad drawings, like sort of try and switch it. Like, okay, so let's just make a bunch of bad drawings, and I'll just like doodle or scribble, and then just sort of almost like when you do gesture drawing, and they tell you to start with like 30 seconds and stuff, just like and have the mindset that this isn't going to look good, and just kind of get that out and see if that sort of loosens me up, at least for me specifically, and then try and go back in and be like, oh, okay, like, does this look better? And if it doesn't, that's usually when I try and put on something that's like energetic, like, or something that gives me that creative like boost, like a music video I really like, or clips from a show, or if I have the time, I'll put on like Prince of Egypt or something that's just like,
oh my
I love
God, Prince of
animation.
Egypt. It's so
Yeah.
good.
So good.
Yeah.
I try to do that. I'm trying to think what was you had a two-part to that question. It was the drawing and
Ooh.
then the first one. So it was like, what do you do when you can't draw and then when you can't do something else?
Ooh. I honestly, you have a better memory than I do. I just say stuff and then forget it 2 seconds afterwards.
It's all good. I tend to go off on tangents, so I'm just like,
Oh, that's really good for
where I came
interviews.
from. Hey, there we go. We got this. We'll figure it out.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, I'll do that if I can't draw. If I can't, maybe the other one was just like mental.
Yeah, you were talking about like how much
Mental.
energy that storyboarding takes sometimes. There's something that you need to tap into.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's what it was. If I can't figure out how to storyboard something, because I
Hmm.
recently was having that same exact
Ooh.
thing. That's why I was like,
Yeah, I'm going through that currently. I've only been storyboarding for like a year. I took one
mm-hmm.
class like this time last year, and like it's so
Oh,
draining. I
it's so
love even
draining.
if like I love what I'm doing, it's so draining. How do you do that?
It's a lot. It's like, and I'm trying to tap back into it too, but a lot of like trusting yourself and trusting the things that you think about. Like it's really easy because I like to take a lot of classes and get a lot of critique from people. But after a while, you could sort of depend on like, I want it to be right, so I'm going to make it how this person's envisioning it. And you have to, for boarding, like you have to really be, especially if you're boarding for someone else, like say you're boarding on a show,
Mhm.
but you have to be cognizant of what they need, what the show needs, production, or even if you're making it for a portfolio, like, okay, I have to make an action adventure thing because I want to do that. Then you're like, okay, I have to do these certain things, but trusting your own brain to be like, what do I think would look interesting? What do I think would be a good angle and all these things, while trying to figure out like,
Mhm.
okay, but is the perspective right? Did I
Yeah.
180?
Oh
Like,
my God.
what's going on?
Yeah.
What's the staging? So for things like that, I try to like look at really interesting photography, or I'll try to look at some cinematography. And if I don't have time to like I said, like watch a movie and analyze it, because you can also get distracted doing
Hmm.
that, I try to look up all those different databases like Shot Deck or One Perfect Shot or
Hmm.
Film Grab, and just they'll have like collections from different movies, and just sort of go through and be like, oh, that's a really interesting shot, and see if that'll kind of jog some inspiration, or I don't know, reading something. That's when you kind of have to tap into your inspiration with storyboarding sometimes, to be like, okay, what can I do to break through this thing that I'm not able to get through?
Yeah, it's
So,
amazing because it's so technical too. Like especially with perspective and everything. So I'm wondering, like when I storyboard stuff, it takes me
Hmm.
forever to even plan it because I'm like, okay, I have to set up
Yeah.
a bunch of charts and graphs because I'm like, they're going to be on this side and they're going to stay on this side and then we're going to switch
Um,
here. But like, do you do that too? Is that normal? I'm very new to storyboarding, so I don't know.
no, I feel like I've heard so many different
But then I've also, sorry for
like,
interrupting, I've
no,
heard
you're
people like
good.
that just go for it and then they like storyboard a thing and I was like,
They they
how
just
did you
draw.
do that?
I don't I forget there was some like storyboard artist a couple months ago that was like, I just draw it. And I'm like, you just start and he just literally that's just how he boards. That's his whole process. It's just as he's boarding, he's just thinking about it and he's drawing it exactly as he's going. And I'm like,
Wow.
that's incredible.
That's
That is
really
not
cool.
me. Because how often like I go through a lot of it, it kind of depends on how difficult it is, but I usually try and do a vomit pass is my first thing. Like usually what people do in thumbnailing, I'll just
Hmm.
pull up. I use Storyboard Pro, so I'll just pull up the whole thing and just do a bunch of panels, and then just draw through all the. Especially if I know what I'm wanting to see, I can just sort of crank through just these really terrible like lollipops and scribbles all over the page, and then later I'll worry about like going back and fixing everything if I'm trying to get like the energy of the mood out first. That's usually, at least now, what I'll do. But if it's something more complicated, I do have to sit down and like, okay, let me like kind of thumbnail this out, figure this out, what's going to be where. Or right, if it's something really complicated like a huge like staging scene, I like recently I had to do something where I had to get a map and actually draw like a floor plan almost and
Hmm.
figure out like where the characters were going to be. That way I could think of what's, especially for drawing the background, right, in perspective. Sometimes you have to do that just so you know where the camera's going to be. If you want to show a certain prop, I wanted to make sure that I wanted to see a certain thing in the background. So I had to like, okay, so she has to be here. So I have to make sure that the staging here is earlier. So for me, it almost depends on which one, like what it is that I'm boarding. But I think whatever process works for you for that project, you know, use that one for sure. But I think after a while, you'll start to notice that you have your own specific process of like, oh, I like the thumbnail first, or oh, I like to make a floor plan map and do like the staging and blocking, or like that guy. Oh, I just know exactly what I'm
Yeah.
doing.
I
Draw,
think
draw, 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 draw.
that's probably what happens when you like get to like 100 billion
Yeah,
years old and you just internalize all the rules so far.
yeah, you do. Because there is like a time where you're like, you're not even thinking about something and you just do it. And it's especially funny if you just draw it and you show a sequence to someone and like, oh, I love how you connected those two. And you're like, I wasn't even thinking. I didn't even notice that. Or you'll be noticing it on cleanup, like,
Hmm.
actually, I kind of did that really well. So, right after a while, the more you practice it, the more you don't really have to think about it as much. Or you'll have it sometimes where you're like, oh my gosh, that's like like, why did I make that mistake? I know exactly how to do that. So,
Hmm.
it's like a both. You start to not have to think about it as much, but then there's times where you have to sort of, why did I draw this person on the wrong side of the screen for like 5 scenes?
Oh my god, I've done that before. That's horrible. That's the worst. I wish you could just copy and paste it. But you can't.
Just can't.
Yeah,
Oh.
I'm curious because I know the
Mm.
start of your career is like really recent since this is your first
Yeah.
industry job. So,
Mhm.
what were you scared of at the start of your very long career so far, and what are you afraid of now? Has that changed at all?
It kind of has,
Ooh.
actually. I was thinking about that the other week, to be honest with you. Um, at the very beginning of it, I was super nervous and afraid of just messing up, like especially because like I can't say what show it is, but just like being in a crew of people who are incredible at what they do, like every person in every different category and level is just an incredible artist, has been working for a while, or if they haven't, they've just like nailing it. And I'm like, okay, I gotta match pace. Because if if I mess this system up, no, I can't do that. So it was a lot of like pressure on myself to like, I have to make sure that I do this so well, even though they were like, we know you haven't done this before. It's fine if we got to kind of help you figure it out. I was like, no, no, I have to know. So
Yeah.
in the beginning, it was a lot of like every time I turned something in, I was like, please don't fire me, please. I don't want to mess
Hmm.
up. And every time I'd be like, great job, Kylie. Da, 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 da. So it was a lot of getting past that first anxiety of just not wanting to mess up the opportunity and not wanting to mess with the schedule. And now that I'm like used to it, I've gotten in the groove. Um, it's it's a fear of strangely enough, like progression. Like I was like, okay, I need to be a revisionist for like, let's do like 5 years or something. Like let's just make sure we stay in this lane. We take all the storyboarding classes still. I literally have a boarding class that I'm gonna start like not next week, but the week after.
Oh wow. Which one is
Right.
it? I'm curious.
I just signed up for CDA's
Ooh.
what's it called? It's like drawing for storyboarding from
Oh
Max
my gosh.
Perkins.
How did you get in? I was like waiting like the entire I was like up at like 9 a.m. and then it hit it and
Oh,
then all the classes filled up and I was like, no, I've been waiting for this.
thing. I did not realize CDA was, I knew it was popular. I forgot how popular it was
Hmm.
because I had put it in my cart and I was like, let's take a stroll. What other classes do they have? Da 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 da. I go to check out, it's gone. I was like,
Yeah.
all right. But they had the waitlist thing for $1.
Oh
I was
yeah.
like, I'll try that. Like, I'm not gonna get it though, but I'll just
Yeah,
put
I
my
didn't
name
sign
on
up
it.
for it because I was like, ah, I'm never gonna get it because who would give up
And
a CDA class, right?
right, and especially something like that because no one really teaches drawing for boarding, like
Hmm.
as a class. And I was like, oh, that's so helpful. But he ended up opening a second slot. That's
Ooh.
why. And he was like, and they were like, oh, if you want to register, you can. I think they were still selling like the leftover waitlist seats. Was that last week? So you can always check or just put yourself if the waitlist is still on there. If you're still interested, throw yourself
Thank you.
on.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that.
But if you can't, feel free to let me know, like, oh, how's the class? And I'll tell you. I'll
Oh,
tell you how
thank
it's
you. I
going.
appreciate that. That would be awesome.
Yeah. I'm always in a
Yes.
class.
Yeah, yeah. No, I was seeing like on your LinkedIn, like you did Rad Secrets, the Rad How To School, and like schools in
Oh
them. I was like,
yeah.
whoa, that's really cool. I love how you're like
Oh
taking advantage of all the learning opportunities. I love people
yeah.
like that.
Thanks.
That's like so cool.
Yeah. Because I feel like it's really important to one just get better at something. 'Cause I feel like part of it is like I feel like I need to be better at these specific things. So I'm always like trying to take a class to learn something, to improve the skill. But right, it's just fun to kind of like, oh, what else can we learn today? Like, what are we
Yeah,
gonna do? So, I really
that's
love that.
lovely.
But that ties into right that I'm like, okay, I gotta get better. I gotta improve. There's all these things I want to work on. But having opportunities where I've had different people be like, hey, like, are you interested in being not a revisionist but a storyboard artist in like the near future, or would you like to test for artist position on this show or this thing or that thing? And I'd be like, I don't know. I'm not good enough yet. I can't do it. Or talking to people like, would you be interested in being a showrunner or a director? I'm like 20 years, like let me really know this industry first. They're like, you don't have to do that. You could do that sooner than that if you want. Like, don't limit yourself. So a lot of my current fear is like realizing that I do tend to sort of, if I feel like again not good enough, beginning of the show it was, or beginning of my career it's like not good enough, I gotta be perfect or I'll get fired. And now it's like I'm not good enough to have these opportunities or this opportunity for a promotion or these things. So that fear has just sort of, like how they're saying the pros, it never goes away. It just sort of metastasizes into something new. Now it's the same underlying fear, but just in a different box. Now it's just, do you think you can go higher than this and succeed? So that's been
Wow, that's really
the
interesting.
journey.
Yeah, I've definitely
That's
like
cool.
I don't have like as much as an imposter syndrome, but there are some days where like but my mom really
Mm-hmm.
helped me and encouraged me to like
Oh,
even though I was like pretty young when I first started to keep like going for like the big adult stuff. But
yeah.
I think and even now sometimes when it's easy to doubt yourself, but
Mm.
sometimes like it's really fun, or like once you get used to like throwing yourself out there, like even if you know
Mhm.
like I'm definitely not ready to take on this project, I'm definitely not ready to talk to these people, but I'm gonna do it anyway.
Mhm.
Sometimes you
Mhm.
surprise yourself, and sometimes you like fail but gloriously, like it's like wow.
Yes.
So oh, it's like that guy, the guy who made Book of Life, Jorge Gutierrez.
Oh
He's
yeah.
so cool. Oh my gosh, he's making Maya and the Three right now, and
Yeah, I'm so
I'm so
excited.
excited. I'm so excited.
Yes.
But he's saying something about like sometimes he just does stupid stuff just so he can write a story later.
That's so
And
funny.
like as artists, like that's what we can do. Like even if we fail, it's
True.
like I can use this
Right?
for
I can
something.
just store that for later, put that in my pocket.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we have
Yeah.
like not a lot of people who aren't creatives get to do that, which is just it's very
Mhm.
interesting for sure. But yeah, I'm curious. You're a storyboard revisionist
Ooh,
at Disney TVA, and that's
yes.
very cool. I'm wondering, like,
Ah.
how was it? Like, what was like the
Ooh.
best part, and what was the hardest thing to adjust to?
I think the best part has just been like it's kind of sad because I feel like the hardest part to adjust to was knowing that I was talking to super cool people all the time, or that they were like putting their trust in me and relying on me. And then, as a side note, as not being able to do that in person, even though I love that it's on Zoom, I love that it's safe, that everyone's able to stay safe. But just sometimes I'll imagine like, oh, I wonder, you could have been able to knock on someone's door and go to lunch, and
Hmm.
it's hard to like know how to reach out because they're also like strangers, so it's kind of like, hi,
Yeah,
my
I
name
was
is
wondering how that
Elizabeth.
is, because Zoom is so different, right? How do you know, like, if it's like
Mm.
okay to reach out to someone then? If you're working, like, hey, can I ask you a question about this?
It's sort of been natural because I've been able to talk to one of the directors, a producer. Sometimes if we have little smaller meetings with me, it's easier for me to like talk and engage and things like that. But even in the Zoom meeting, even though they all know each other, when it's everyone, it does get to be that awkward like, so how was your weekend? How are you
Uh-huh.
doing? So sometimes that's helpful to be like everyone else is just as nervous and not sure who to talk to and how to reach out to someone else. So, but I'm hoping in the future I could be more proactive about that. But the best thing, I don't know. I feel like the best thing is just to be able to, because I'm not in the studio and I can't like peek over and be like, what are you working on? But the way that the files are set up, you can actually see what other people are doing. So it's been really nice just learning and seeing like, oh, that's really cool. Like, oh, I didn't know you had to consider that, or I didn't know you could do this and that. So when I am talking to people, I can bring that up and we can have like a more in-depth conversation about what they do or how something in specifics works that I wasn't aware of, and as far as like this show and the industry. So I think that's been really cool because it's been just a really nice learning opportunity, especially as a revisionist, because you get to literally sit back and like see how the progression works and sort of be like, oh, okay, so that's how you would board something like that, or that's something that you have to be considerate of for production or for animation. So it's been like nice to learn. I think that's been like my favorite thing. It's just overall learning experience as well. So that does make me sound like I wish I could see them in person so bad one day.
Yes, this is an interview. Tell me all
Yes.
your questions and answers and
Uh,
answers your
uh, uh.
questions. I have a mic here. Okay, anyway.
Oh, you do. That's right.
So, whoa.
Yes.
So, what is the
Mm,
lesson that you'd say has taken you the longest to learn?
that's a good question. Because I was gonna say like I feel like the imposter syndrome is a big part of me, but I'm trying to think like lesson wise, just like being being okay with being yourself, you know, like because that's really underneath or attached to a lot of that is just like being okay with like the sort of art that you want to make, with the sort of stories that you want to tell, the sort of people you want to impact. Um, yeah, a lot of one of the biggest things. And even, of course, even still now, I'm like, as though I'm like 105. Oh yes, back in my life. Still dealing with it. I don't know why I started to say it like that.
No, it's okay.
Or just being okay with like, no matter what, just being who you are and bettering yourself as a person. That's definitely been one of my biggest challenges. It's just, that's the nicer thing. I feel like as I approach 30, you do start to sort of grow into recognizing, oh, this is me, and sort of going back and selecting things that you were ashamed of, like why did I used to let people make fun of me for watching anime? Give me that back. You know? Or
is
like,
there anything that you found
animals.
while going back that like surprises you now? Like, oh, I didn't know I had that in me.
My like gregariousness.
Ooh,
I
what
always
does that
thought,
mean? That's a big word.
yeah, I miss big words too. I don't
No,
use
it's
them very often. But like just that, like that big energy and like happiness and being like, yeah, just having that like excitedness about myself. I always assumed I was a very quiet, you know, I eat bologna in the corner and in the dark, like I don't do anything else, don't talk to me. Like
Mhm.
that was my personality for a very long time. And then just talking to my mom recently, and she used to always tell me these stories about when I was younger and how just fearless I was and confident. I'd talk to anybody and I was just always happy and excited. So I feel like a lot of that is, of course, you go through things in your life and it brings yourself down. But now that, like I said, like trying to tap back into who I am and trying to be happier as a person, just getting back into that feeling of like, oh, that actually might just be me. That might just be a part of my personality. That might be who I am as a shy person, but also just this very happy, bubbly person. It tends to come out when I'm very nervous.
Yeah,
about
no,
things.
same. It's like my like coping mechanism or like my defense thing. I'm like, no, it's totally fine. I understand. How do you do that? How did you figure out how to connect with
Ooh.
yourself before? Because yeah, it can be
Mm.
really hard to come back to it, especially if you've learned to be that way, if that makes sense, over a long
Mm.
time.
Like learn to kind of put yourself in like a
Yeah,
smaller.
yeah, or maybe like how the shy thing, like you're a shy person one day and you're an outgoing
Mm.
person the next. How do you reconnect with which one is you? That's like the
Yeah,
question.
I think my like it's like finding that it's a layered thing instead of separating the two. Because part of it started to come out because I had to do public speaking. I had no choice.
Mm,
Because I used to be a psychology major in undergrad, so we had to do a lot of writing and presentations and talking to a lot of people. And then especially in art, you have to get up, because I was a double major, so I had to do those classes, which was very, you know, I'm in the library and I'm writing things and nobody's
mhm.
talking to me. And then being in art and having to be up in front of all these people
Oh,
critiquing you
wait, so
and
you
giving
did
you
them both
feedback.
at the same time? I didn't know that.
Mhm.
Whoa, I thought you did
Yeah.
psychology first and switched. Whoa, that's crazy.
No, because in high school, I had wanted to be a therapist for the longest time. So I took a lot of like dual enrollment. So I took the college classes at the same time. So I went off to school, terrible, but it's funny. I went to my first psychology class. I just remember sitting down and being like, I don't like talking to people. I don't want to do this. I like
Mhm,
psychology though, but I don't want to talk to people all the time.
mhm.
Why did I want to do this? And then just remembering how much I've always loved art, even as a kid, and having a high school friend of mine with me being like, why don't you like, you know, instead of graduating early, like just pick up the second major and take more time and just do an art major. And so I was double majoring when I was at Florida State. So I would do psychology, and then a lot of my other classes were art because I already had a lot of my credits done. So that's why I was always like getting up and speaking to people, because you have to, and then learning how to receive that critique and not being like, okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and then when I went to SCAD, having learned how to pitch, especially as a storyboard artist, you have to have that like energy and tap into that person. So a lot of it was having these force situations where a lot of my personality would come out. And even just having people remark when I was comfortable around them, I was very, happy-go-lucky and gregarious, because
Mhm.
it was starting to slip through the cracks, as I was coming out of my shell a little bit. So it'd be like, oh, I didn't know you had such a big personality and all this stuff. And I was like, do I? I thought I was baloney woman. Like, that doesn't make sense.
Baloney
So
woman. I like that.
that's my superhero.
Yeah, and your cape
But
is just
that's
baloney. Yeah, I love
yeah.
that. Yeah, that kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier about
Mhm.
throwing yourself into stuff even if you don't think that you're ready. That's really, really
Right.
interesting. Um,
Yeah.
when is the last time that you created without fear, and how did that affect the work that you made?
Hmm. That's such a good question. When I know you a lot of the times it's been when I go into something knowing I'm making it for me, which is interesting because I know, as much as I would judge myself, I usually judge myself off of the idea of what other people are going to think of it. So, like, I haven't released it. I want to remake it and actually release it. But I made for one of my friends, Abby Lee, she made a February this year. And one of them was just doing one
Does
big
she have a
project.
podcast or does she do
She
something?
does.
I think
Yeah,
I
with
know who you're talking
Ariel.
about. Oh my God. Oh wait, yeah, she's
She's
so
so cool.
cool.
She's so sweet. I love her and her
Yeah,
work
I
so
really
much.
is. They're on my list of people to talk to. They're like
You
really, really
should. You
cool. Oh my
should.
gosh.
You should. They're super. They're so sweet too. Like, y'all would have such a good time
Aw.
talking. I'm promise you. But like, oh man. And so we were talking at that time. I was like, I want to do a musical sequence. So I picked like some song from the Newsies that they had showed me because I don't know too many. Right? I was like,
Yeah.
oh wow, this is so like cool. Like, I've never heard this music before. So just going through and knowing that I had no idea how to draw musicals, how to time it, how to do this and that. It was something, for some reason, I think knowing that it was going to be, because that was the whole point of that month, right? It's just putting something out there and being okay with it being rough and being okay with it not being perfect. That when I went in, and maybe it's because I had the mindset beforehand of being like, it doesn't have to be great. I could just make it. And then just going through and doing the whole thing. And it was only towards the end when it got really complicated that I was like, what am I doing? But I think that was the last big project I made where I wasn't afraid the whole time. I was more letting myself and knowing that I was just figuring things out and I was just having fun and trying to do something different. So I think I'm having an epiphany as I'm explaining it. If
Ooh.
you go into something knowing that it doesn't have to be perfect, which sounds so simple, but for me, I'm always like, it has to be, if it's not like John Ritta, if it's not like Maddie
Mhm.
Sharafian, if it's not like
Oh,
Timmy
Maddie
Chikatilo,
Sharafian, she's so good. She's
she's
so
so
cool.
cool.
Oh my
She's so
gosh.
good. I'm just like, as I was saying names, there's like list of storyboard artists I keep on my computer so I can just keep
Yeah,
referencing and
same.
studying their work. Yeah, right. It's so helpful. But it's just like that it doesn't have to be this like, blockbuster level lighting and the shading is amazing, drawing is amazing. Like, just going into it being like, we're gonna make something bad just because we want to figure out how to do it. We're just here to learn. Let's not, So that's my epiphany and advice.
Wow,
Try
that was
that next
really
time.
fun.
If you're scared, just be like, let's just go into it knowing it's not gonna be the best thing, but that you're just trying something. So
Is there a project or like something that you're putting off because of fear?
mm, mm, right now, I don't think so. It's more, oh, I take it back. There is something. But I
I
was
was like,
like, I'm
ah.
not doing anything because I put it off so long ago. I think it's part
Uh,
of it. Because I like to because I have to, right? Make samples and different sequences and stuff. So a lot of the times I'll just be like, I can't figure out that story point right now. So I'll come back to it. There's never a fear thing. But there are bigger projects that I want to write Like when I was trying to think about going to screenwriting last year, because I write all of my own stories a lot of the time. So I was like, oh, I'm actually more of a screenwriter and a board artist than just a board artist. So I was coming up with different ideas, and I was like, there's this story from a long time ago I never really fleshed out. And, 2021 comes, that's going to be my big project of the year. I'm going to sit down and figure it out, and it's going to be awesome. Of course, I'm imagining like it's like an A24, like what if they picked up your movie? Wow, that would be so cool. And I think it was the having such big dreams and love for how cool it could be if I could really figure it out. I was just like, oh, we can do that later. Like we don't let's not work on it ever.
Yeah, because it's perfect in your head, right? I think I was talking about this with Garnet too, but like it works in your head, and once it's out there, you're like, oh, wait a minute.
That doesn't, how does that, why would they be? So I feel like part of it is out of fear, but part of it is also just out of like life experience. Because I feel like some things you have to, not that you have to experience life in a specific way to make specific art, but just the idea of sometimes you don't know the answer to that story question or that design question because you haven't seen something yet that connects into it, or you haven't remembered something or epiphanized about something. You're like, oh, actually that makes that work better. So like a half and half. So I'm trying to get better about the fear thing. I'm trying to just to go for it and just to draw it and not to be afraid of it. But things like that, I'm like,
yeah, it's really interesting. That reminds me of, have you watched the Mitchells versus the Machines?
I have the art book.
Oh my gosh, you have the art book! Oh my god, I need to get that. It's like my favorite movie now. But I was, the first storyboarding class I took was by Mike Aranda at like the start of the pandemic. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it was so good. It was literally like mind-blowing, but he was showing behind the scenes of the movie that was still called Connected back then. But it was amazing because this dude, Mike, is amazing. Like he's written for Gravity Falls. He's always doing stuff. Like I've been following his stuff since like he was in CalArts, which is a while ago. But yeah, he's, even though he's like this really incredible writer and like a hilarious person, even the movie changed so much because there's such a good team of people writing it. And like Alex Hirsch was like the creative consultant or something. Like Lindsay's just like, oh my god, all these insane people. And even that movie with all those insane people wasn't like perfect in the beginning, or they still had stuff like for example, they were originally like gonna kidnap the president or something in the movie. Yeah, and I was like, wow, okay, that's Barack Obama. Right. But like stuff like that, like fundamental things about the story were completely different. But then they wrote it and it ended up just being fantastic. Oh my god, I can't imagine the movie any other way. Or like, have you seen like the designs for Katie Mitchell? How much like they changed?
So good. And right, you're right, exactly. She changed so much. Even in the boarding stage when they were like, all right, this is how she looks. Even then they were like, all right, they're world-class artists. All of them, all those story people, production, design, everybody, the animators, and them all still coming together and being like, something about this, right? And just being open to change. It's such a good art book. I'm still thinking about that.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to read it.
A lot of books. I'm very into collecting art books.
Oh, I love that so much.
It is a fantastic art book. Like one of my favorites. I know I just got it, but it's got a lot of good stuff in it. So
okay, I definitely have to check that out. That's that's
sponsored
amazing.
by Sony.
Oh please. But yeah, that's just so cool. I love how like even if you don't have it all figured out, you might as well just do it. And then talented people will be like, actually, I think this would work. And you're like, that would work.
Yeah.
You're so right. I never would have thought of that.
Even the when you watch all the behind the scenes of movies, like the Ghibli movies, all the Pixar, because now Pixar has been putting their behind the scenes, how they made it.
Oh, I love those. Yeah.
That it's just like, even then, or the stories from Spider-Verse that like day before the premiere, they were like, go, export it. They were working up until the last minute. Like there's a lot of people just like trying it again, and just just running with an idea. Because right, you get so many stories where they're just like, let's just run with, let's see how that works, and then exactly they try it and they're like, it's perfect. I love it. Wow.
Yeah.
Every
That is so interesting. You mentioned before that you did psychology and animation. Like that's so
Mhm.
interesting. I'm wondering like
Yeah.
how does knowing psychology, cuz I was like my mom and I are like
Mhm.
super interested in psychology and like how that works. I've never taken a
Ooh,
class, but how
you
does
love it.
something like knowing psychology like affect your work or how you create characters and stuff?
Ooh. I'm actually gonna touch on, because I was listening to this earlier. Because I always heard you be like, "Oh, I've done a TED talk." I'm like, "Let me listen to that TED talk." Actually, never actually looked it up. And I forget, you had one section that really stuck with me about how the stories you make affect other people. Like something along that lines. I forget where in the talk it was. Because I was just like, she was 13 when she made this
Wow.
amazing. Like just listening to it. But so for me, I went through a lot of different careers I wanted to do, but I was always interested in why people did what they did
Mhm.
and how you could help them through that or help them understand something about themselves more, even if you don't like actually help that person conquer or figure out whatever it is, just having that awareness of it. So for me, whenever I make a story or I'm working on a story, if I'm making it or trying to analyze it, I'm usually trying to figure out like how is this going to bring light to something else for someone who's watching it? Because often seeing the character go through an epiphany, you might have an epiphany yourself, or at least if it's not something you're going through, that you can understand somebody else's point of view. So at least when it's general story, that's usually what I'm thinking of. But when it comes to the character, I'm always trying to figure out how their life right may have affected them in all the different things that they do, like for example, right, like me, if my baseline is in uh fear of not being good enough, then you'll see that in either a lot of the situations I've been in or in a lot of the ways that I handle something, right? Like this interview, for example, I'd be like, oh, I'm really nervous. And if I had said nothing about imposter syndrome, you could probably still pick up on different things that I said or different ways that I express myself, or right, the coping mechanism that I have, like, I have to be good and
Yeah.
interesting for you to want to listen to me instead of being like, well, really, I'm this person sometimes. Like, so just, I don't know, I feel like knowing psychology when it comes to character creation and story creation is important for that reason, because you could really tap into, I don't know, the person that they are and that they're trying to be, and so the people watching it can have that same experience, right?
Wow.
Like for example, when you watch Frozen, for me at that time, especially sometimes you're just going through something, at that time I was really feeling like I never emoted, because that's what I was saying, like I was really in like a tight shell. And I forget what I was going through, to be very honest with you. I don't even remember what it was. But I always think about how I was like, I'm really cold and passionless, because I had this idea of what a passionate person is supposed to look like and how a passionate person is supposed to be. And if you're this, and if you're good, and if you're this and that, and I wasn't any of those things. And going to see that movie and seeing Elsa be like, I'm cold, I'm passionless, I'm going to block myself. Because I was like, I'm going to block myself off from everybody and never feel again. She was going through
Yeah.
that. And I was like, that's me. So I want to be able to, knowing psychology and being able to pour that into your characters and stories, by the time it gets out to people, they can have that feeling of like, that's me. Oh my gosh, I know these same feelings. Or something like, I was talking to another story friend about like Tangled and the psychology of abusive
Yes.
parental
Oh my God.
relationships. And
That
we
movie
really
does it
don't,
so well.
they do it so well, because there were so many people I would read about who were like, they either recognized, like if they already knew that their parent was like a narcissist, and they recognized their parent and they were like, oh my gosh, that's what, my parent does to me. Or realizing, oh my gosh, that's what my parent does to me. Or I've seen parents who are like, I used to do that to my kid, like just having, or friends like, oh yeah, actually, you know, so-and-so's mom does that too. Like just having these connections through the audience. And right, because they did it so well that hit people so much harder than if it was just, you know, you can tell someone is like trying to write something, but it's not really tapping into it because
Yeah,
they're not really getting into the truth of it and like getting that truth back out of the
yeah, that's
character.
the thing. Like, I was watching the show like at the start of the pandemic, and I think everyone was going through a hard time with the pandemic. But I was really just trying to live through this show, being like, if this character can get better, I can get better. But then the show went; they were too afraid to get into it. Or that's one of the things that I really hate about certain kinds of shows or certain kinds of writing, when people are like, they're so close to getting something so good and they have such a beautiful platform to reach a bunch of people, but then they're too scared and they back off at the last second. Oh my god. It motivates me by a lot of spite. Like, whenever I make something, it's going to be 100% real, 100% authentic. You're going to see stuff.
And that's actually something I'm trying to research now, is like, I feel like some people, they have the ability and the platform to write it and make it, and they don't, either because they can't figure it out, or they're like, oh well, the audience might be more interested if this other thing happens. But then, and it's like, sometimes you have the executives who are like, well, we want the character to have this sort of reaction, or we want to see this kind of story, so we need you to make this kind of story. And then even if the executives could be helping them, it might be someone further up the chain to be like, oh well, we can't have the character do that, or we're trying to, because imagine Tangled would be such a different movie if company, executive, director, team didn't trust making a story in which the mother was a narcissist. You know, if she was like, or not the mother,
or like a fake
Mother
empty
Gothel
version of that, like bad mom, like Cinderella stepmother kind of thing. Like, oh, she's just a bad person, rather than all of the like the gaslighting and like all that stuff. Like, that's what, just like, I love how you mentioned this somewhere, but you make characters that are grounded in reality, through your psychology and stuff. And that's like, oh my gosh, I love that so much. How do you, I just want you to talk more about like that kind of process. It's very, very interesting.
I think it's really just tapping into that, trying to get to like, what's the base issue that this person is having or tackling, right? Like, because you can have like Lord of the Rings, right? You could have this huge fantasy world, right? It's got a lot of stuff in it, but it hits every time and for so long because they have that base, you know, that base issue of just like toxicity and friendship and love, and what do these things mean to these people, and like all these different, like the two sons where like the father loves this one son so much the other one might as well be dead to him, and he didn't recognize him until he himself was at death's door. You know, like having all of the, and in the meantime there's a war going on, there's dragons and stuff like flying through, but at the base of it are all these very real things that people go through every day, you know. So that's usually why anytime I'm making something or working on something, I have to be like, okay, like what is this character, because, and at a certain point it's kind of helpful if you're like, what is this person going through, what is this person trying to say, or how are they not saying it, or do they recognize that they're going through something. So it's like, I think the first time I had phrased it like that to myself was, what's even the name of that movie? It's like children who chase lost voices or hear lost voices. I think it's chase lost voices. They're the main character that you follow, and I try not to spoil it, but she like is introduced to a fantasy world, and she's always putting herself in danger throughout the movie, to the point where you, or at least me, as an audience member, you're like, why would you do that? Like, why? Like when you're watching a horror movie and you're like, why would you run up the stairs? There's a car with keys in it right there. Like that sort of feeling. And there was a moment literally when I was like, see, you got yourself in a mess again. Like, why would you do? And I was asking myself, why would you do this? And at the same point, because everything was just accumulating to this one moment where she was definitely going to die. And then she is asking herself that question. Right, I know.
It's all right. It's all right. It's totally fine.
So good. And she's asking herself that question, and then she comes to the epiphany and says it and drops to the ground. And I paused the movie and I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. And realizing and remembering all these different scenes she was in, every time she made a dangerous mistake, or she chose to do this, or she chose to do that, and being like, why would you, and realizing all of that was that through line, that invisible ink, that thread between why she was the person that she was. And I was like, I want to make
Wow.
that, because all these like, same thing, dragons, creatures, all the stuff's going on, parallel worlds, da 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 da. And it all came down to this very specific problem she was dealing with. And that's why the story went the way it went. And if she didn't have that problem, then it'd be a completely different story. So I think that was when the first time I was like, the reality of how that person is feeling, and how they're either emoting these things and not realizing it, emoting these things because they want to be the certain person, all these different things you would do as a person watching the movie, making a character that is that real, despite whatever else is going on. It could be robots.
Yeah. Like
machines.
Wally.
Right. It could be Wally.
Yeah.
It could be Spirited Away. It could be
Mhm.
anything, and still hitting that very specific. I think there's something where they're like, the more specific you make
Yeah,
a
that's what they did with
story, the more
Katie for the
universal.
Mitchells. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's lovely.
And some people are like, oh, that's me. So I don't know. That's just sort of the groundwork I go through, no matter what else is going on, just trying to find the why and what that person's always doing.
That is so interesting, especially like as an actor. That's pretty much like I do acting and stuff. So like that's like your whole job is to figure out, okay, why would I say this? Why would I do
Right.
this? And it's like, oh my God,
Right.
that's why. But yeah, it was
what
like
kind
that.
of person makes a face like this? Like, if you're angry and your face is neutral, like, why would you do that? Like, what
Yeah, it's
happened
like
that you
different kinds of things. Like when I was new to acting, I was like, if a person's angry, that means their eyebrows are like this and they're shouting. But it's not
right.
like that. People like the way you grow up, or it's all affected. It's so cool. It reminds me of like, you know, BoJack, like the
yes.
lollipop song that the horse, the Wendy Malick horse, that the mom, she's like, you go out there and you sing that lollipop song, and then yeah, and that how that affects him as a person. Oh my gosh, that's a show like with really good characters. Oh my God, it was so good. Yeah, I'm curious. So yeah, this is such a lovely conversation. Like, has a story, has a story or a character that you've made like ever helped you out, or like you see this character go through this journey and you're like, oh wait, that's how I can solve my problem too. Has that ever happened to you?
I'm trying to think. Further, like, where are all the different stories that because I never have one where I like you know, people have like OCs, which I think is so cool, but I never have a character that I've always made that I've like, this is
Yeah, maybe
something
not
I love
one
and
necessarily. Like, no, it doesn't have to be specific at all. But has there been like a character where you see them like, or maybe you're writing something, and this character goes through these problems, and then you realize, wait, this is what I'm dealing with like right now, and this is how I can solve it.
I recently, and I need to put it on my website, I recently made one where it's two half sisters, and one of them wants to get closer to the other. And I had so many different iterations because I made it during a class I just took. I took Chris Amick's writing class, and I took Andy Kung's storyboarding class. Ooh. And we were working through it then. And just because at first it was from the point of view of the sister that didn't want the relationship. Like, she was like, you know, throwing her down and this and that. And just going through and trying to figure out the two characters and their relationships, and realizing that that's how I can be with different people who are trying to be close to me. That I'm just be like, elbow to the face, get out of here. And he was like, well, why don't you try writing from like the other sister's perspective and all these different things, and writing that and realizing and having to tap into the other person's perspective and story, and seeing myself from another point of view, and using my own insecurities of times I've wanted to be closer to people and all these things. I feel like that story really helped me be like, yeah, I can do that, or I can be, you know, from that sister's point of view, she was too pushy on her or something. And from the other sister's point of view, she's being too cruel because the nucleus of why they have a rift is not the other sister's fault. You know what I mean? So it was just like, I need to work on that.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I actually love that.
Oh, thanks. And just trying to tap into that made me, it was like a mirror on the grounding in reality, right? Like a mirror of like, oh yeah, like I do that. And that helped it to build the story to be a lot stronger by the time I turned it into him again. He's like, this is a totally different feeling. I really feel the intensity now. Yes, that's exactly what I wanted. And now I need to do a journal about this and figure out what's wrong with it. So,
That is so cool. I love that so much.
yeah.
What is something that you had all these fears about, like the
Mm.
perfectionism? Oh, also another saying that I really
Ooh.
like. Elizabeth Gilbert, she has this fantastic book called Big Magic,
Mm.
but she talks about how perfectionism
Ooh.
is just fear in like a fancy trench coat or like something like that. And I was like, ooh, okay. Anyway, what is something that you failed at? Like you actually failed at, and what happened afterwards? Was it as bad as you thought? Did the world end? Are we all still here?
Ooh. This ties into because most of my academic career, I've been A student, 4.2 GPA, da 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 da. And especially in high school, because I did all those classes, I was just continuously in school all the time until I graduated from SCAD. Because I always took classes even in the summer, because I was like, whatever, I'm not doing anything anyway. I have nothing to do. And then having the realization, because most of your friends are like getting jobs or moving or this and that, and you're like, oh yeah, like it'll be a couple months maybe. And then the month goes by and you're like, I was on vacation, second month, third month, 5 months, 6 months, and just realizing every time I make a resume, send it out, rejection, ghost, critique, no critique, because it wasn't even good enough to get a critique. And having, I think it was almost 2 years unemployed, to where there was a period where I even put into the Target that was like at the time up the street from me. Like it was 10 minutes walking. I was like, they gotta hire. I'm like right here. I'm the perfect employee. And it wouldn't take me. And just remembering laughing and being like, I get rejected from huge studios around the world. I can't even get on at the local Target. What? Like I'm not even. And there was this period, I don't even remember who the studios were. And then I think I got like 2 or 3 rejection emails at the same time. And then just losing it. I remember I had like a dream board, like above, at that time, another computer. And I was just like distraught and just picked it up, flung it across the room. I was like tearing off because I had all these different,
Aw.
stickers and stuff when you go, yeah, career fair. And I was like, like I'm laughing now, but at the time it was so serious.
Mhm.
And just being like, why can't I succeed? And at the time I was like, I feel like I wasn't succeeding at anything. I was working super hard. Like I've always worked super hard. Like, why is everyone else able to do this and I'm not able to do this? Maybe I'm not good enough for this. Maybe I wasn't ever meant to do this. Why did I take a risk to do this? I have student loans now. I could be, an art therapist or doing therapy or doing something else. And the risk wasn't worth it. And at that time, that failure was so heartbreaking, especially because it was so long. Versus now looking back, I can look back at that old portfolio and be like, oh, I see now why I wasn't getting the response I wanted to get. But at least being right, it's not the end of the world. I did eventually, use those feelings of distress to be like, okay, if I'm not good enough, I'm pushing through that and being like, maybe I just need to do something different, or maybe I just need to get better, or maybe I need to improve, and trying to channel all those feelings of distress in something more positive about improvement, or about just changing the way I think about something. Like how I think that same year I had gotten this job in the spring, I was like, I'm just going to do writing because everyone likes my stories. No one likes my drawings. I'm just going to write the stuff because you can't say anything about that.
Yeah, that's what happened to me too at some point. Yeah.
Yeah. You're just like, fine, fine, fine. And then having friends be like, well, there's like one more apprenticeship you should put into, just try one more time. And that thing, and making those stories, and then that June of last year, having all these people reaching out and all these webinars and all these different things, and feeling that community. And I joined Rise Up Animation, and having that community of people who are supporting each other, and you can do this and we can do this together, and being all excited like every weekend or every other weekend, seeing something, being able to talk to mentors and stuff, and having that refuel and that repurpose established to me of, let's try one more time, and just letting, I was saying earlier, letting my stories be the stories I want to make, and just trusting myself and trusting in my improvement and the progress, and trying not to feel like just because you haven't succeeded yet doesn't mean you're a failure. And then it worked out.
Yay!
And then it eventually came to fruition. But just remembering that was something, and it's still something I need to work on, is just because that failed doesn't mean you're a failure, doesn't mean that your dreams aren't important, or that your feelings aren't important, or that you as a creative are not important or not good enough, because you can get better. But you're always it's like the Mr. Rogers, that like documentary that came out, where it's just like, you're an important person and you're special, and you don't have to feel like you don't deserve the best in life just because maybe your work isn't at its best or something like that. So I don't know. That was a very long answer.
No, I'd love that. What do you think? What do you think would have happened if, for some reason, you didn't get the job that you have now? What would you be doing on this parallel alternate timeline? What would you be doing now?
I thought of that. I feel like, because that's what I was saying earlier, like I help out with my family and stuff myself, so I'd probably still just be here helping out. But I probably just would have continued to press into other ways to express myself, like with the screenwriting thing, how I was like, okay, well, if my drawings aren't good, maybe I can just separate the two and still enjoy art and just do writing. And I had considered like, okay, if I get to this point and I don't have a job in animation or storyboarding or whatever, then maybe I could look back into therapy, because maybe I could do art therapy. Like just finding, I probably would have just found a different path or gone back to school or something, because even as down deep in it I can feel, and as much of a failure I can feel, there's still that little sliver of me that's like, but we can still try something. We can still try to figure something out to where you can still express yourself and feel the way you want to feel again, and feel like yourself again. So I probably, if it was this point of the year, I probably would have gone back to school, or was studying for the GRE or something, because I would have been like, this is far too long. Like I gotta do something else, because right, you'll just, at least for me, I would have just continued to feel like I was worthless in that way if I didn't do something to change it. So that probably would have been me, or at least taking classes. Like I'm still taking classes, but it was something. I probably would have ended up doing something to progress in some way, because I like I said, I can get very depressed, but I don't like to feel that way for very long about myself, because I know the things I'm saying to myself aren't true in that way. So probably I don't know, be studying, be at the library working, would have found something to do, I bet. I don't know, hopefully.
That's really interesting. Yeah, no, I had a similar experience when I was like first starting out, like with the acting thing. First of all, there's like not many Indian teen girls in Hollywood. Whenever there's Indian kids, it's usually like a 10-year-old boy. So like I was, yeah,
It's true.
I had this opportunity. The character was like me. My skills were better at that point, and I got very close to getting it. Didn't work out. It was fine. But that just like having so much rejection for like years and years and years and years, and like, can I actually do this? Can I even do this? Like, not even like skill level, because you know the Hollywood. But but yeah, but just like just even like getting close, being like, I
Yes.
almost stopped that. Wait, I can do this. Why am I like
Mm-hmm.
being so afraid? It's literally nothing to do with me. Or I'm
Mm-hmm.
okay. Yeah, yeah, I love
Mm-hmm.
hearing about that. Oh my gosh. It's so cool to hear. I just did a speech for like graduation
Yeah,
and
I saw that.
yeah,
It was so
I just
good.
thank you. But yeah, I was talking about the same thing. Like just by doing these
Mm-hmm.
interviews and like hearing stories like yours or like other people's like about like this is when like my world ended, but it actually turned out fine. Turned out better.
Mm-hmm.
That's just really, really nice. It's just very
Right.
helpful as a little baby 17-year-old.
Yeah. And
Yay.
you're right, like having those moments where you get really close and you don't get it is so healthy that your reaction, and I've had that where it's like, oh, so it is good enough. Like the fact that you got that close and it didn't work out is not so much that it's like, well, you're terrible, get out of here.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
you're really good and we happen to go with this other person for this reason or that reason
Mhm.
that's outside of your control. Sometimes looking at that as like, it's not me or my work. Sometimes it's just these other factors that
Yeah,
I don't
for
even know
sure.
contribute to it.
Mhm.
Right. And that could be a really good source of confidence. Be like, oh, okay.
Yeah, because you can't control like how light your skin color is or like what race you're
Mm-hmm.
born or like all that stuff. Like, but you know,
Yep.
like it makes me just happy that like, you know, okay, it's nothing to do with me. It's just with
Mm-hmm.
it's other people's problem. It's their problem. But yeah,
These other things.
what helped you get out of your comfort zone? I think we talked about this a little bit already.
That's a good question. 'Cause I'm trying to think of like a specific, like, let me try something different. Yeah, I think it's that tapping into, I have to tell myself like you can mess up because we're trying this different thing. Or even like say if I'm like trying a project out of my comfort zone, I can be like, okay, well, we will try it. Like the theme for the day is like, we will see what happens. We will be okay if it doesn't work out, but let's just see what happens with it. Or say if it's something like I brought up earlier, right? Where they're like, oh, like you don't have to limit yourself. Like, which was crazy because I thought I was being logical. Like, well, I just started, not really that great at boarding all the way yet. I could be a revisionist for a few more years. And any sort of supervisor I've talked to or art manager, they'll be like, you can do it though. Like, you can do you can
Yeah.
do it, right? And having to tell myself like, well, if that person believes in me, they see a lot of different people all the time and a lot of different artists. So I mean, if they think I can do it, maybe I can do it. So
Yeah.
again, like sort of listening when people see that in you that you don't see in yourself and being like, oh, put a toe in the water, see how that goes. And, the old tried and true, you listen to Beyonce sometimes and just seeing her. Yeah, I like the nod, like, yes, Beyonce.
Oh yeah,
See,
I like the sophistication that you gave me. Thank you. Like,
I just saw
I'm
like
familiar.
the head nod out of the, yes, yes. But just seeing how many different things she's tried, and how much she's thrown herself into it, and even seeing her fear of like, I think when she dropped her album Beyonce that time, she just dropped it, right? And she was like, I was so scared that no one's gonna like it because it was so different, and I always made, a certain type of sound of music, and seeing the reception of that, and how she was like, oh, okay. And then she does Lemonade, and that's even more different. And everyone's like, yeah. And she's like, yay. Like it worked. And just, I don't know, sometimes I'll watch her concert and you just get that feeling of energy of like, if I can do these things and I can work super hard and put things to it. And I think she even has, I always see the gift where she's like, sometimes you try really hard and it doesn't work out and you have to be okay with it and being like, if this person is able to do that, I can kind of figure out how to do that. I went off on a tangent. My brain
No,
just,
it's
I said
great.
Beyonce and I just kept thinking about Beyonce. I don't remember where I came from. Oh my God.
What does that mean? The
But
illusion of free choice. I love that. Yeah.
There's no
No,
choice. There's no
I
choice.
love tangents. Like they've been really, really good for interviews, so it's like great.
Yay!
Those are really good
Awesome.
just for life. Like I like seeing the
Hmm.
fun thing about these interviews is yeah, I do have like a script in front of me technically, but
Hmm.
like sometimes it just goes everywhere
Just
and it's so fun.
try it out, you know. But I always tell people, if you feel low energy, just watch Beyonce. I know when I submitted to SCAD, I just kept watching Beyonce music videos and performances, especially her live performances, because you get that energy she's giving and the energy. All these people who are so excited for this one person, you know, and her team, of course, on stage and off stage. But what she gives out, that they're, you know, it's like you can have that same kind of support in your life. And if she didn't, that's where I was coming from, accepting that and receiving that energy from people. If you don't, you'll always limit yourself. You'll always feel like, well, right, like if she was like, well, I have to always do this certain type of music, this certain type of thing, then, you know, if she didn't accept other people being like, you can do it, like, I think people are really interested. I think we'll be interested. We'd love it. You can do it. I know you can do it. You got to believe in yourself. If she didn't push past that, then right, there wouldn't be the kind of music that she ended up making later. Or even
Yeah,
all
for
these different
sure.
directors, like if, you know, Jordan Peele was like, oh, I have to always make comedy because people expect that of me and I can't write horror, I can't do anything else, wouldn't have gotten Get Out, wouldn't have gotten Us, all these different, or Issa Rae, like if she was like, well, I'm just always gonna do these little skits in my room and I'm never gonna put it out there. She didn't put it out there on YouTube, which then didn't put it out there on HBO Max, then she wouldn't be able to create the kind of stories, be the kind of creative, impact the kind of people and impact herself if she just always sort of kept this limit here in
Yeah,
front
for
of her
sure.
face.
I'm
So,
starting this new interview series for like
ooh,
younger creators or like people trying to like promote this stuff about pretty much about
nice.
that same thing because growing up, like the people around me, like there's an expectation of, oh, you can't like pursue what you love until after
Hmm.
school or after college. And I was always like, but why not? I like you don't know, you
Right.
could die tomorrow. I'm gonna draw my silly little cartoons and maybe something
Mhm.
good will come out of it. Yeah, that's something that I was like I wish I could like grab people and like shake you by the shoulders and be like, you don't have to be good, you just have to do it and it's fine. Maybe stuff will come out of it,
Exactly.
maybe not. But I don't know. I
Hmm.
think it's really easy, especially like, I don't know if that's just the culture, but to keep waiting for
Mm.
your life to start. Like, for example, right now
Mm.
I just finished like graduating high school. Now, apparently,
Yeah.
according to all the movies, my life is supposed to start in college. But
Mm.
that's not what's gonna happen. And then after college, your life starts again. But you can't like you can't like keep living in transition. You know what I mean? Always waiting for the next thing.
Mm.
Because for example,
Hmm.
I'm still living with my parents. I don't have to pay rent or anything. When I go to college, I'll have to like have a job and like buy groceries and drive and
Oh
stuff.
no.
But then that also comes with freedom. So there's like good and bad
Hmm.
to like all stages of your life. So you might as well just like take advantage of it. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
very interesting.
Hmm.
Do you have
I'm so
anyone
glad
who
you said
helped
that.
you or encouraged you to overcome fear? Because I
Usually
know
my
you're like
mom.
mentoring people, so I'm wondering, like, did you pass that
What?
on to someone? Oh, sorry.
Am I somebody's mentor?
Oh, sorry. I must have misunderstood something. No, I mean like,
No, you're
your personality is really nice. Like, I appreciate you coming on this interview, like helping
fine.
other people or that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
Is that because somebody helped you, or what motivates you to do that, or who helped you? That's a lot of questions.
It's but it's all the same. It's all tied into like my mom. Yay! At the end of the day, it's always my mom. Like whether she does it very nicely by being like, you know, stroke your head like, you know, you can do it. Like you gotta believe in yourself more often. Or most often it's the like, why are you telling people that you can't do this when you know you can? Like, it's a very like
Yeah.
tough love, like chop you on the head, like, oh, I'm sorry, mom. But I feel like because and she doesn't know that, but it's always been so cool now like, how she encourages me. But even people she doesn't know, how if they're going through something or something strikes her spirit where she can feel that the person's just going through it, how and she can immediately get into this like motivational, like the type where if someone could grab you by your hands and you would be crying and you don't know that person, and she's just hitting you right in the feelings of like, you can do this or you can try that and I believe in you. Like she's such that kind of person all my life that and not only does she directly inspire me, but trying to bring that same energy to other people when I can, of being like, let me grab you by your hand. We can get through this. If you just want to talk about it, if you just want to, I can tell you something nice about yourself. I can do that for you. Like, so I don't know. It's just my mom.
That's so nice. Oh my gosh, I love that. We were like going, my mom and I were talking about like, I'm a child of like immigrant parents, so we were trying to find like, who is the original strong like woman in our family? Because I learned that from my mom, and my mom learned it from her mom. So I was like, how far back does this go? And we found the original one. And it was really, really interesting to see like, literally, that kind of love can ripple through generations, because the original one in my family helped literally generations and generations of like daughters. It was really cool. It was like insanely cool.
So awesome. Was it like a like, not to get in your business, was it like a situation where she was like, I want to change how things are for my daughter or for like the next person? Was that why she was sort of the original one?
It was a long time ago. Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, she was incredible. From what I hear, like she was like really, really, really tough and like taking care of everybody and just passing on really good like values, and that's like rippled down. Like here we are, like what, 6 generations, 5 or 6 generations, like I'm here, and like I'm still feeling the effects of whoever that was. I've never even met her, but like I wear her face like when I look in the mirror, which is like, oh okay. But yeah, it's just like that kind of love like just ripples down through everything. Oh, it's so wonderful. Really I love hearing stories about people's moms.
Yeah,
it's so nice.
Right, moms are great. Love moms. But what's cool is that like that's kind of what even you're doing. Like you might be talking to me and you might hit me and be like, oh man, like I really gotta listen to Nicole. But like other people who are gonna watch it, and then they might take that, and now you've affected other generations of other people's families. You'll never know. And it's the same thing with movies and TV and all this entertainment. People might be like, it's just like cartoon, like it's only the kids that watching it, or it's just this, or it's just a song. But like, especially now at how fast media can spread and how many people can get it, you don't know how many generations of people you have just impacted from them seeing that one story and that hitting them in a certain way to be like, I want to interact with myself different. Like I watch a lot of Let's Plays, especially recently.
Yeah, same.
Getting back into it. I love it.
What do you watch? I'm curious.
Oh man, I used to watch. I'm trying to think, because I'm actually kind of trying to collect a new like crop of people, because I've been so like busy with school and stuff. I'm like, now I have time to watch gamers. I found like Jazzy Guns or iBerleezy, like all these, like they're very popular. But I'm trying to find. Oh man, I feel like there was someone else I used to watch. For a good minute, I was very obsessed with watching The Watcher and BuzzFeed Unsolved and stuff. So that's also why I haven't found any new gamers, because I was just rewatching their stuff all day. But iBerleezy, he was playing the Yakuza series, and just seeing him, like he would stop every so often and be like, you know, as a man, like this is teaching me a lot as a man, like how to interact with, like he was having epiphanies about himself, just watching how this character was dealing with situations. He's like, I am, you know, not patient enough, or I do need to do this or that or the other. And being like, people be like, oh, that's just a fighting game, this and that. You don't know how that could hit somebody else just because you had that certain character have these certain stories and react in this certain way. So all that to say this, with your moms,
Yeah.
like that all coming through you, and how you're not just taking that to your next family member, but to a wide crop of people. So
wow.
I just think that's so
oh my
special.
gosh, that
like,
is so lovely. Yeah.
Someone's gonna be watching this and you'll never know them, and you've affected that person.
Oh my god, you're gonna give me like an existential crisis right now. But yeah, that's incredible. That's what I was talking about. I think with Elizabeth Ito, she made City of Ghosts, and she was just talking. Oh my god, she's like incredible. Oh my goodness. But she was just talking about like sometimes it's just so cool. Like you never know who you're impacting. You'll never see that too, but it's there. And like it can be
Mm-hmm.
there. Like for example, the original strong person. Oops, sorry. That must have been
You're
oh,
fine.
I gotta edit that
It
out.
wasn't. I just heard like a little contact.
Oh,
So that's a good
ASMR.
night.
Okay, good, good. But yeah, like that person in
Mm-hmm.
my she was never written down. You can't write that stuff down. There's no record because back then they didn't have any records.
Right.
But yet it's still like, oh my gosh, I could talk about that forever. That is so wonderful.
That's so cool that you found exactly the person
I know.
though.
I didn't think I'd have to go back that far because I don't know much about like where I came
Mm-hmm.
from or whatever for like obvious
Yeah,
reasons. But
same.
the reason we found it was like, what? So cool.
That is cool. Oh,
Mhm. So, what is the most fearless thing that you've ever done? It doesn't have to be art related. I had one dude, he skydived, which was interesting.
that's terrifying.
Yeah. Oh my
I'm
god.
scared of heights.
Mhm.
Actually, I didn't skydive, but it's kind of related. I once went to Arkansas, but there's these. It's called like cliff jumping, where
Oh, like the
like
base
you.
jumping?
No,
Okay.
no. Oh, God. I saw my image. It was just so terrifying. Not that, but like there's like a lake and people. It's just like imagine if you were just at a lake and there's just like a lot of like hilly, ridge.
Yeah.
You go up high and you can jump off of that into the water. That's it. That's all it is.
Wow.
Whoa, base jumping can be terrifying. But I am very afraid of heights and not so much being up high, but specifically falling from them. It's very weird. I love being on a plane. I don't
I'm sorry,
like
I'm drinking
that.
my water. I'm just gonna die for a second. I ruined your nice story. Okay, anyway. Am I still choking? No, I'm good. Thank you.
You're fine. But I've been so tempted to sip my water too. I'm like, I feel like I'm gonna do it and just be like this huge.
Hey, there's an instance of I just failed and like the world didn't end. It's fine. It's okay.
Hey, there we go.
So yeah, you were saying something about jumping off the hill into the water.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not afraid of heights. I'm specifically afraid of falling from heights. So I was like, for example, I love planes, being in planes. That moment when you're lifting off and you're seeing gradually how much higher you're getting, I'm like, I fall.
I pretend I do not see it.
It does not exist. As it's going down, you're like, please stick the landing, please. Oh Jesus. But and trying to stick to these smaller, like little jumps or not wanting to jump at all at first. And then just being like, it's just that one moment that you're afraid and then it'll be fine. And I forget how much, I think it was like 15 feet up from the water and then just running and going for it and jumping in. That might seem like super chill to Mr. Skydiver Man, but like that was such a big moment. And I'm gonna bring up my mom again, actually. This is a very weird specific fear for this reason, but even if it's like a baby roller coaster, I will freak out.
Oh, same. I was in this thing with my cousin and it was like this indoor roller coaster thing and it was like a VR roller coaster too, so it's not even like real, but you're like moving still.
Yeah.
And we both were just like screaming and when we took off the headset, everyone in the mall was just like looking at us and we were like, I didn't realize I was screaming. But yeah, same.
I've done one of those. It gets you so good, and it's so scary. It's so serious. But I remember, and this goes back to like moments when someone's encouraged you, and tying into this, Space Mountain at Disney World, super chill. It's just doing this like, and it's in the dark. But I was so there's like children on this ride and they're wee having a good, and I'm like screaming, I'm crying, I'm hyperventilating. And she had been in the seat in front of me and had turned around and was just holding on to my arms like here the whole time, like, it's okay, just breathe us right, just let it out. And I'm like, top of my lungs. And afterwards, her being like, that wasn't so bad, was it? And I was like, like it's not actually like, and I remember her talking me through it in the moment. I was like, this actually kind of isn't as bad. I'm just freaking out. Oh, so it'll be little things like that. That's usually when I test it, fearlessness or everyday life, just sending an email
Oh my
to
God,
someone
yeah.
you're scared to
Adult
email.
emails are so weird. Like I had to start like I started my career at like 12 and like sending emails was like my God. Now I don't care. I like I did I message you?
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure I message
Yeah,
people with
you
smiley
did.
faces now, but like
Yeah.
I don't care anymore. Professional email or not, you're
Right.
getting a smiley face and that's final.
Exactly. Because I used to be the person that was like, okay, I can't put too many exclamation points,
Yeah.
exclamation point, period, 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 exclamation point,
Yeah,
period,
yeah.
exclamation point. Like it was a math. Now I'm like, I don't care. Every sentence is gonna have, if I'm feeling friendly in that sentence, you're getting an exclamation point. And you're lucky I put a smiley face in this email. So you're right. It's even like mundane things like that can be so, because you're like the reflection that that person might have of you is so vital. Now it's like, as long as they feel my love,
I
it's
feel your
okay.
love. I'd give you a hug if you were here.
Oh,
Oh, my arms look so long. But yeah,
that's so cute.
oh,
Yeah.
did okay, so yours is jumping off a cliff. That was very cool. What did you do once you were at the bottom in the water?
I was just
How
like,
did you feel?
oh my gosh,
Turtle.
that's so high. And also, I thought I thought I could swim before. It's something
Oh,
about lake water, where lake water, because I've only swum in the ocean or in a pool. Something
mm.
about lake water where you're like, and especially when you can't see, I'm just like, I actually don't think I can swim very well. So I was like, give me the energy, please.
Yeah.
But it was like, oh wow. I think I only did it a few more times after that, but just being excited that I could do something, that I never usually would do because I would be so terrified of things like that. I'm like, oh,
Oh,
I
that
can do
reminds me of, I think you're
it.
probably familiar with this, but Maddie Sharafian, she made this comic about this little furry
Mm.
little creature dude, and then he has like
Yeah.
a little house and he just like
Oh
goes
yes.
on this journey. It was so
I
cute.
love
It's adorable.
her comics so much.
She's like incredible. Yeah, oh my God.
I
Um,
know exactly which one you're talking about too.
what would you say to
With it.
someone who struggles with fear in their work?
Mm. That is a journey because you often want it to be like immediately I'll be fearless or immediately I'll be this and that, or you try to make a plan for it. But especially like when you right, like the more you talk to pros, you're like, there's a point where you're just like confident, right? And you're like, no, never,
Glen
never,
Keane, yeah.
never, right? Like listen to him being like, I was nervous about this, I was nervous about that, making this movie, making this next thing, and you're like, you're Glen Keane, you know what you're doing. And for him, he's still like, no, like I still get nervous, I still feel like I can't do this, or that I need to do. I forget, was that him or was it another talk I heard where the person's like, you get this feeling if you do well on the first thing, like say I think they made a movie or whatever, it's like that you have to do even better on the next one.
Oh
So then
yeah.
having that fear of like you don't even want to do the next thing because what if that's not perfect, or what if that's not as good? Then they're gonna be like, oh,
Yeah.
your first movie was better. Why did you do this? So just I think that's the number one thing. I just feel like just realize that it's a journey, and however, you have to sort of go through that and improve handling it. It's going to be specific to you, but that it's going to be more like a friend or like a partner than something you have to push away. Because like you said in the beginning, like fear, a healthy amount of fear, I feel like is good because it
Hmm.
keeps you from crazy stuff. It
Yeah,
keeps you
yeah.
cautious.
Hmm.
But it can also make things a little bit more exciting, I think, too. When something does work out, you're like, I did
Yeah.
it. Yay.
What
So
is a
that's
common
my
myth? I know you've only been working in the industry for a short time, but what's a common myth that you've seen, or maybe that you have, that like students have
ooh,
about working or being a storyboard revisionist in the animation industry, or in general?
I would say general that it's your fault if you didn't get a job or a callback or a portfolio review or something. I didn't realize that until, because sometimes it's just that you don't know how the inner workings of things like that work. So I read Natalie Nurget's book where she was talking about a lot of times it'll be that, or even the Culture podcast with the story folks from Pixar, that they're like, it could be some great candidates and you'd hire all of them in a heartbeat. But in her, sometimes it's literally, they don't know who to choose. So it's a flip of a coin, and that's not your fault. That is just like, we had to choose somebody had to lose a job to get the job. Or for the Culture podcast, how they were talking about that some people, they'll reject for an internship because they're like, you're actually just ready to work. Like, I wouldn't give you this internship because you should just be working. But you don't get to have that feedback directly of like, your work is excellent. It's just, maybe we'd rather you have a different position, or maybe just luck of the draw, or maybe not for this show, but I'm going to keep your information in mind for something else that might be better for you, or they might request you. Or so just having that, like, that knowledge that you don't have to beat yourself down as much, and being able to step back, because I did this a little too harshly, but being able to step back, and even not enough, because at the time I thought I could, terrible portfolio. It was okay, but it wasn't great. Of just being able to be like, am I ready, one, work wise, but even two, like on a schedule, like how would I do? Would I be able to handle this? Would I be able to do this volume of work? Which often you won't know until you get into production, because different shows will have different, because I've heard of shows that are really popular and the production's like on fire. Like, it's so difficult. And then ones like mine where it's like, I'm cruising, it's a good time. So I don't know, just trying to learn that aspect of the hiring process, that it can be a nebulous reason why you're not getting that response that you want quite yet. It could be your work. It could be your work that you need to improve on something. It could be the studio's not hiring. It could be that show has someone else in mind. It could be a lot of things, but you don't have to tear yourself down all the way.
Yeah, for sure.
Because something, So
is there anything that you wish you were taught about the industry, or like working with a team of people in general?
Yo, I want to know so many things. I feel like I don't know enough about different people's jobs. Like, I was able to ask my producer, like, what do you do? Like, what is the job of a producer? What is the job, like, of an art manager? What, like, I feel like, especially because I went to an animation school, like, especially in animation schools, I feel like they should be teaching, right, you can get the job, like, inside the job, what is a budget on a show, and how do you, because as an artist, you need to know, you can't just have us having all these backgrounds, man. You only got so much money, and how to budget for an entire series versus this episode and this and that, and right, how do you deal with colleagues, because you're not always going to have a fantastic crew and a nice crew. You're going to have that abusive boss or that abusive colleague. How do you handle that? How do you handle doing this or doing that? Or, like, I just feel like there's so many different concepts that we don't know enough about.
I feel like there should be a class on how to be human. I wish.
Like, there should be, like, because I know, at least for undergrads, you had to have a graduating bachelor's class before you go out into the workforce. Here's, because especially for art, right, they were like, okay, here's how galleries work, here's how you show your work, here's how you do this, that, and the other. Like, they should be doing that for everybody's thing. And even if you're not able to go to an animation school, like, just to have, and that's nice thing about the Rise Up webinars, like, that you get to talk to all these different artists from different backgrounds, but being able to actually, like, hear some, and we were talking about that last time when we were meeting, like, hearing about taxes, like, how do you do taxes? Because a lot of the time, you may not be in a studio at a contract and you have a very specific thing that you're doing for taxes. You be a freelancer. So how are you supposed to do that? Or how are you supposed to do this? How are you supposed to do that? Like, I just want to know all these things. We don't get enough information out. But now that all these studios are doing all these webinars and events and stuff, hopefully that starts to sort of be more commonplace, that people actually have answers to those questions. Because I know when I get to be in the guild or in the studio, I'm going to be like, hey guys, I got a question.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about this? Bothering people. Because, right, I feel like we should know. I feel like that's, especially when you're working, I feel like that's important.
Guess what? We came to the last question. Are you ready?
Drum roll.
All right.
What's up?
What is something that you thought was scary, but you were able to overcome or get through?
That's a really good one. Man, I thought was scary. Like in general or like work related?
Yeah, in general.
Oh, why is this?
Anything. I love hearing about this stuff.
You know, this is more like a networking thing, and also just a people thing in general. Talking to certain people, like you'd be like, oh man, like, and that's where I got that when I was listening to the Aliki Graph interview, where it was just like, man, like you could just walk up to someone and shake their hand and be like, hi, I'm so and so, or even an email form, just being so nervous about so many different things, about reaching out to someone, about talking to someone, about applying for a job, about trying to make friends with someone, like all these different things. You'll be like, they're gonna think I'm weird, they're gonna think this, they're gonna think that, and the person be like, hi, how are you? Like, what's going on? How's your day? Thank you for sending me this is awesome. Like you definitely get, or you don't get a response, but a lot of the times when those sorts of things work out, just being like, oh, that wasn't as scary. Because for me, the social anxiety, I can talk myself out of a lot of opportunities because I'm like, this person doesn't want to hear from me. This person doesn't want to this and that. And come to find out, da 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 da. Oh man, I could have. Why didn't I do this thing? Why didn't I send that email back? Why didn't I text this person back? So, need things like that very often, or even work related. Just being like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of things, that's my theme for the day. It's just like trying it out, just like not being afraid of that rejection. That at least you can say that you tried your best. That's something one of my current mentors keeps having to tell me, because I keep being like, man, I wish this looked better. I wish I did a better job, that I was better at this or that. And be like, you really have to understand that feeling of trying your best, because even if it's not something that you're like, oh, it's not 100%, it's not this, it's not that, that at least you tried the best of what you had at that time. That's what it was. So I don't know. That's why it's hard for me to pick something specific, because I can be afraid of so many different things, big and small, that like, I don't know. Like I've had interviews where I just knew I was gonna fail it, and then the person was like, oh, great job, would you like to do this?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Me? Wow. So I don't know, it's hard to pinpoint, because I have that so often where I'm afraid to turn something in or show something or apply for something or talk to somebody, and actually getting a response and being like, oh wow.
Yeah, for sure. That's actually how no, that's a great answer. That's actually like how I started doing all this stuff. I had a list in my notes app called Kick Fear in the Butt. And it just had like a bunch of my influences, like Maddie Sharafian, Lin-Manuel Miranda, all these like incredible people. And I was like, you know what? So one day I just started going by the list, like one by one, just calling them, being like, hi, I'm Nicole Nagelli, you want to talk? And then people were very nice. Like, the worst that's happened to me, nobody's ever been mean, or either like they say nothing, or like they're like, I can't do this right now, but thank you. And I'm like, that is cool. I got a response. This is a win. But yeah, like that sort of stuff. It really like like by the time, I think how far am I down the list? I'm like not even a fourth of the way down the list. But since I started the list and since I started calling people, and to now, because that led me to doing these interviews, I'm a completely different person. just putting yourself out
Yeah.
there is like so important. Like I'm so happy that that happened.
It's true. It's true. That's true. It will make you a lot more confident because you're like,
Oh
oh, it
yeah.
worked before, you
Yeah.
know.
Or
So
it's like, yeah.
it'll still be there, but just not as much.
Yeah, under the surface, it's like, wait a minute, I've seen you before. Get out of
Yeah.
here.
Get out of here.
Yeah. This is amazing. I have so much fun talking to you. You're awesome.
Yay.
Thank you for coming on here. This is awesome.
Yes.
Do you have like contact information where people can find you or your work?
You can find me at Swirly.
The Disney Channel sign.
Story by Kylie Gay. I try to make all my handles the same. So I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram. I have a very organized reference Pinterest if you're interested.
Ooh, I am interested. I'll check that out.
Aha! They're very helpful. You'd be surprised how much like art is on there and you can like categorize.
Yeah, no, for sure. My Pinterest board is like everything. That's where I get everything.
Lovely. I love it.
Awesome.
But, yeah.
Do you have any last thoughts? Anything you'd like to leave with?
I would say underneath it all, just like don't tell yourself that you don't deserve things or that you don't, or that you're a failure. I think most of it is like that you're a failure. You're not a failure if something failed, you know, or if things are just consistently failing for you, or if things are just consistently not working out for you, that doesn't mean you can't still accomplish something. Because this is a very small piece of advice. If you like video games, even in the slightest, when I was at my worst and I felt like, right, I was being rejected, I can do this, I can do that, I can do the other, not just for work, but just life in general, things just kept falling around me. And I'm like, I can't get anything to work out. And I just feel like I'm not worth doing anything for, worth being around. Then I got splurged by like savings that I did have. I was like, I'm never gonna move to California. I'm just gonna get a PlayStation. And I got a few games, and being able to be in an environment where you can accomplish things and have people be like, thank you for helping me, or thanks for doing that. Those little things can really build back up your confidence, even in like the slightest way of like, I can do things and help people. It'll still trigger something in you that you were helpful and that you accomplished something and that you did something. So I would recommend that and that's probably why a lot of people do enjoy games, because that does give them a sense of like accomplishment and fulfillment. So that's my thing. You're not a failure just because things aren't working out.
I love that. That is awesome.
Try it again. Try it again.
Just do it. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Now we're going to wave bye to the audience. Bye, audience.
Bye.